I was sent an article that talks about a man that recently lost his entire 401k. Now, here's the situation. This is a man in New York City in his 30s who was changing employers. He was going from his current employer to a new company. And usually, when you switch employers, you pull out any kind of retirement assets that you have. You don't necessarily go out there and spend that money, but you either roll it into a plan at your new employer, or more commonly, because not all plans accept rollovers from other places, more commonly you would probably roll it over into a IRA. Now, it's unclear from the article which one of these two scenarios this gentleman was attempting to do, but what is clear is that that money never made it to where it needed to go. It just disappeared. And we find out later in the article that he's suing the service provider, Paychex in this case, in this scenario, because they're the service provider for the old 401k, and he's claiming that they're responsible. Now, I don't know whether or not they are responsible. The article doesn't necessarily give enough facts to determine that. I'm sure it'll be adjudicated in the court of law. Maybe they'll come to some kind of resolution before then. So we may never even know. But the reality is the money never got to where it's going. And I suspect that Paychex maybe has some responsibility, but more importantly, they're the ones that are involved in the scenario with the deepest pockets. And that's why they're the ones that are being singled out for this lawsuit. Now, what likely happened is that somewhere along the line, that check either got lost, stolen, misplaced, or somebody went ahead and fraudulently cashed it. And just before anybody says something to the effect of, "Oh, well, that's impossible. You can't just go ahead and cash a check that's not made out to you," and that is true. I have a personal story that happened to me a number of years ago. I don't have all the details, but I'll fill in exactly, what I can here. I was expecting a check, and these checks come in the mail, as most checks do, and it was very clearly in an envelope that made it obvious that whatever was inside was a check. You couldn't quite tell how much the check was for through the envelope, but the windows were big enough where you can tell that it wasn't a letter that was being sent. It was clearly written on check paper. Now, that check never made it to me, and I knew to expect it, so I kept on following up for a period of time, number of weeks. It may have even stretched out into a month or longer. I don't remember. This was a number of years ago. But I kept on being told, "It's in the mail, it's on its way. Don't worry, everything is cool." Until one of these check ins, I find out that, they say, "Well, why are you asking about this check? You cashed this check. Our records show that this check was cashed." Now, that started another process that took weeks, if not months. Again, this was a while ago, so I don't exactly remember the timeline. But ultimately, it ended up in me getting a copy of the front and back of the check. Front of the check will tell me who the check was made out to, presumably my name, right? Back of the check would have shown my endorsement on there. And they're claiming that I got the check was made out to me. But when I looked at the copies of the check, the name on the front was not my name, and the endorsement on the back matched the name on the front. Again, not mine. Now, this now became not just a misplaced or lost check that could have very easily been reissued, but in this particular scenario, it was a case of fraud. There was a ring of people that intercepted checks, and it started with a US Postal Service employee in this case, that along their mail route through my town and the town next to it would steal checks that were obviously checks, right, from this one source. And then they worked with people who would somehow forge the check, and folks whose names were forged on the check, and check cashing places that would then cash the checks. And everybody cashed in, everybody made some money, except for the folks that were entitled to the checks and the money in the first place. Now, this ended up being some kind of federal case, and this was years ago, so I'm sure it's been long wrapped up. The people that were convicted, if in fact they were convicted, I see no reason why they wouldn't have been, are probably either out already or maybe still in jail. I don't know. Um, I was told by the police officers that it was being pursued as a federal case because the mail service is a federal issue, and it's pretty important to the government that that be not messed with. And in this case, it was. So that's probably long been resolved. I never found out who the individuals that were behind this were responsible. I knew the name on the check. I probably have a copy of it somewhere in my records. But again, whether that was even a real name, who knows? And where this person is currently, again, maybe they're in a prison system somewhere in Detroit. Who knows? The point of the matter is checks do get stolen and they do get uh, lost, and they do get counterfeited and changed around. And if that happens, then that becomes a problem. So here's what you can do in order to kind of protect yourself from this happening to you. First and foremost, if you have the option of getting a electronic transfer, ACH wire, whatever the case may be, where it goes direct from your current custodian, which is the firm that handles your 401k, or if you're changing bank accounts, your bank or whoever, see if you can get an electronic transfer from them to the new place, right? That's the easiest and simplest way of doing it. That way, it doesn't have to be sent to you, and then you don't have to go anywhere and forward it from there. It's just a seamless process between the two parties, and you'll know that one or the other at any given point in time is going to have control over those assets. So you kind of know who's responsible, right? In the event that they can't or won't do that and you're forced to get a check, usually what happens is, in the cases of 401ks that are being rolled over, the check will be made out to the new custodian. So it'll say check in the amount of 114,000 made out to Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or whoever else, Paychecks, right? For the benefit of your name. So it's for you, but it's actually going somewhere else. And usually the way that works is it goes from the current institution to you, and then you have to forward it to wherever it's going. Now, you being involved in this process, you have to be an active participant, right? You have to know where the checks are, where they're going, because you have responsibilities here. In the event that you're under age 59 and a half, if you don't roll over that money within a 60-day window, you could be facing penalties up to 10%, right? That's what the government charges for folks that take money from their 401k before they're of retirement age. Now, whether you're of retirement age or younger than retirement age or whatever age you are, you're still going to have to owe taxes on that, because if you don't roll it over within that 60-day window, the IRS considers that a distribution, and distributions are a taxable event. You don't want to be in that situation where this gentleman, for example, was in his 30s, pulled out $114,000 as far as the IRS is concerned. Now, what really happened to it? Different story, but the IRS doesn't care. They want their slice of pie, right? So let's say he's in the 25% tax bracket. All right, that's 25 grand plus another 11,000 and change for the penalty because he's in his 30s, right? He's under 59 and a half. So you're looking at what, 36, almost $37,000 in penalties if my math is correct. Maybe more if he's in a higher tax bracket. You don't want to be in that situation. So here's what you do. Step one, always do an electronic transfer wherever possible. If impossible, then know where it is. Know where the check is, right? And the best way to do that is get certified check. That way there's a tracking number, there's a record of where it is, and it's a little safer. Now, it might cost you a couple of bucks, right? Certified checks are, or certified mail is typically, more expensive than just throwing a stamp on something, but it gives you peace of mind. Now, I'll leave that up to your discretion. If you're getting a $114 check, that's probably not as important as if you're getting a $114,000 check. So know the timeline. Make sure also that in the event that you can't get a certified letter or certified mail in this case, know where it is, at least on its way to you. Sign up for a United States Postal Service informed delivery. It's a free service that they offer. And the way I understand it is every piece of mail basically gets scanned. And so you can find out what you're going to get in the mail today. And that way, at least you know, hey, this was supposed to be in my mailbox today, and it's not. All right, now you've got a clue. Now you can start trying to track it down. Maybe it'll show up tomorrow, but then again, maybe it won't. So use electronic transfer wherever possible. Follow up on any kind of checks or money that you've got coming your way if it's not showing up in the time frame allotted. Make sure you're persistent with that, because most customer service people are going to put you off. They're going to say, "Oh, just give it more time," right? And then it just becomes somebody else's problem. That's all they're trying to do. Don't fall for that. Don't accept that as an answer. Be persistent. Use the tools that are available to you. Electronic transfer, if possible. If not, let's get a certified check. If not, or certified mail. If you can't do that, at least know where it is in the process by using USPS informed delivery. And whether or not you're doing it electronically or the old analog method, make sure you do whatever kind of transfer you need to do, roll over from, any kind of qualified account. Make sure you get that done within the window specified by the IRS, because I don't want to see you having to pay taxes on something and penalties on top of that potentially, just because you screwed up and weren't paying attention to the calendar. Now, sometimes these companies will dilly dally and they'll kind of drag their feet, but it's incumbent upon you, if you're getting the check and you're the in between person, it's incumbent upon you to do that ASAP, because you don't want to be hit with penalties and taxes on top of everything else. That's it for today, guys. I'll put a link to the article that I was forwarded in the description box below if you guys want to check it out. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys next time.